Hey folks, and welcome back to the shed. Today we're going to go over basically the difference in wattage or power used via the DC side of the inverter and the AC side of the inverter. So I essentially have, the smart shunt, which is over here in the corner. And that records all power going through it, your amperage, your wattage, and it all comes up on my DC home app. And not to mention the Renogy 1 core. The inverter, this is the new edition 2000 watt Renogy inverter. It also has a Bluetooth dongle. And so it also shows up on the Renogy 1 core and the DC home app. Okay. So my big question is this. It's like, what's the difference in wattage going from DC to AC? You see, the thing of it is that I would like to have a 3000 watt inverter. I've got some other projects coming up that require a little bit more power. The 2000 watt inverter is great, but it doesn't run some of the bigger things I have reliably. Let me put it that way, such as my compound miter saw, which I think 3000 watts would do it. I mean, it's a close call with the 2000 watts, but when it loads up, it clicks it off. I've done it a couple times. And some other various tools that I use here and there. Mind you, I do have a remodel coming up this summer, and the goal of the remodel is to utilize nothing but solar power here at my Holly Street property, basically. I've got rural property with no power, and I'd like to be able to get the bugs ironed out here before I take the system out to the rural property and do the same thing and build something out there, which you guys will be a part of also in the future. So in short, Renogy doesn't sell a 3000 watt inverter that has the Bluetooth dongle capability, so I can see what it's doing via the DC home app or the Renogy 1 core. So my thought was maybe get another Bluetooth shunt 300, I think is what they're calling it now, and having two of those so that I can monitor what's happening with basically both ends of both inverters, so to speak. Kind of keep an eye on what's happening just for my own data. That's it, really. So let's take a look and see what's going on. Okay, so to monitor the power and have something fairly consistent, if you've watched any of my other videos, I do one with this induction burner versus a coil element, cob as they call it in Europe, or stovetop or cooktop is what they call it here in the States. That'll give me reliable power so I can compare the difference between the two. On the phone here, I've got the DC home app, and that gives real-time info for the Bluetooth shunt 300. And then down here, I've got the inverter hooked up with the Renogy 1 core. Now, idle data, if we can all see this, just sitting idle for the shunt, I've got 12.72 watts with nothing plugged in, and the inverter 5 watts. When I plugged in the stovetop or the induction cooktop, it boosted it up to 17.17 watts and then 17 watts, respectively, between the shunt and the inverter. So I think now we're going to go ahead and take a look at it with it turned on. And let's kind of see what happens here. So let's just crank this up to let's just go high for the fun of it and hit start. Okay, she's running. So let's go ahead and take a look and see what the data is doing here. Inverter did kick on there. And basically, I know it's going to be hard for you guys to see. You can see pretty well on the graph here, though, for the inverter. It's kicked up to 1,267 watts. Okay, and then on the shunt side, it's 1,383 watts, 0.77. So there is a difference of about 300 watts or so, or less than 300 watts. So just let it run for a minute and kind of check that out. I wonder if we get a little bit clearer of So yeah, she's holding pretty steady where she's at. You can see by the graph down here, 1,265 watts is where it wants to hold. And then up here we've got 1,379 watts. Not a big difference right now as things kind of mellow it out. Okay, so as you can see here, like the shunt and the inverter are idle, or 12.72 watts and 5 watts respectively. With the cook plate plugged in, we've got 17.17 watts and 17 watts respectively. And then operating with the cooktop on, or the induction burner on, the shunt is pulling 13.75 watts and the inverter is pulling 1263 watts. 1,375 watts and 1,263 watts respectively, for a difference of about 112 watts. That's not too bad. I kind of wonder what it is with bigger tools. What to say? That's pretty close from the DC side to the AC side. That might be a pretty good idea for me. Listen, I don't know much about DC to AC conversions. I know there's a difference. If anybody out there can help me, if there's a formula out there so I can work that out, I think that'd be great. Again, I'm going to say it's a shame that Renogy doesn't sell the new edition inverter in the 3,000 watt range. I think it would be great, but you know, they have their reasons and I'm not going to bark about it too much. But if I can just use another smart shunt for that inverter to track what I'm doing in case I have any problems, I can see if I actually exceeded the wattage of the inverter. Maybe that's the way to go, even though that's going to put me like up in the $500 range, which would of course, you know, more than 500, I think. Yeah, probably around 500 bucks. At that point, I could probably get a nice 48 volt inverter charger at 3,000 watts or 3,500 watts. But this is the thing. I've got a lot of stuff going on this 12 volts. I know a lot of people knock 12 volt systems. Say, why not just go 48? 12 volt systems are just, in my opinion, a little bit more versatile. There's a lot more stuff out there that runs off of 12 volt implements. My cooling fans, for instance, I got little PTC heaters that I use in the wintertime to keep my batteries at a nice temperature so they won't freeze. Essentially, that's all 12 volt stuff. All of it is. Not to mention some other 12 volt implements that I use. I would like to stick with the 12 volt system. I'll just use heavy cables. I don't care. I think it works fine. You can see in my other videos, it runs the air conditioner the whole 9 yards, but we're going to put that air con to the test this summer. Anyways, you guys, thanks for tuning in. If you got any info regarding, you know, DC to AC conversions or formulas I can work out there, I would super duper appreciate it. And we'll take another look at this later.